because
Nice.
Singapore. So a nice session here, nice people. It's great to connect with some people from the region as well. So let me start. And by all means, it is a very intimate session. I've got my notes here on this screen. I've got my block here where I take some notes here, and then obviously I can see you in front of me. So if you see me going here, I'm just looking at my notes and making sure I haven't missed anything on my notes as well. And as I say that, my tablet went to sleep, so I'm just re-putting in my password. So let's get started. Prashant, obviously you've finished your MBA 6 years ago, if I'm correct. But let's start a little bit earlier than that. What did you used to do before you joined IE and did your MBA? What did your life look like before joining IE?
Sure thing. Before I joined IE, one of the things that I was really passionate about was sort of entrepreneurship and kind of technology transformation, and how can you sort of make a change in the world in one way or the other, so to speak. Prior to Facebook, one of the companies that I was working for was Google, and I was sort of working there, kind of international environment and that sort of thing. And before that, I was working for ISEC. I don't know if any of you are familiar with ISEC. Jess, I know I know you are. It's nice to see you here. And sort of also very sort of global, international entrepreneur. How do you make a difference in the world, and that side of things as well. So I've always kind of had a very international mindset. I've always wanted to see how I can bring more sort of entrepreneurial side of things to my life, if you will. And I had a lot of the things that I wanted, right? I wanted to develop further in sort of an entrepreneurial side of things. Which was one of my core things in looking for when I wanted to do an MBA, as an example, and that was something that I really found in IE.
Yeah, so you really touched on it, but if you don't mind, I wouldn't even mind elaborating it. Why MBA? At stage, it looked like your career was doing really, really well already. You were on the way to a successful career. And you still decided, in inverted commas, if you want, to go for an MBA. So why did you go for an MBA? And maybe you give us already a few reasons, but why IE in particular?
Yeah, sure. It's I think it's a really good question, and I feel free, everybody else as well, if you have any questions throughout, just to ask as well, right? So we want to keep this as dynamic as possible. I was keen on, going further into learning how a business works, 360 degrees. If I wanted to start my own startups, if I wanted to help and help other type of organizations, there were certain things that I realized I didn't necessarily have such a strong competency in, whether that would be sort of finance, or whether that would be, aspects of operations or different types of things. So I was keen on sort of getting kind of a holistic view of how a business operates. And I was keen on going more into sort of leadership positions. And I was in leadership positions in ISEC back in the day as well, but I was keen on kind of solidifying that experience. And I knew that an MBA would help do that for me. So I was keen on doing an MBA. I was keen on something that was very practical in nature. I personally am not a very theoretical person in terms of reading a book and understanding things. I like to get my hands dirty, so to speak, or like kinesthetic learner. So I knew the MBA program is sort of a case-based method where, you would have the Harvard Business Review cases that are kind of up to date, and you would discuss them in class. So like that type of knowledge transfer was something that I was keen on having. So that's why sort of an MBA program was key. And then I was keen on going to a school where it had an entrepreneurial outlook that was very international, as I mentioned, and the ability to and the flexibility of the programs that they had. So I ended up doing what was called the Global MBA program, which was a part-time program, online, even before COVID, so you could do it anywhere in the world. So I could still work while also doing this. So I was able to bring what I was doing at work to the classroom, and what I was doing in the classroom back to work, sort of thing. So I was keen on kind of an agile, flexible program, and IE was definitely a place that was on my short list with those characteristics, if you will.
Nice. It's a nice share, and I can relate to a lot of points there. When I was reflecting on my while you were saying it, I was reflecting on my own journey, deciding IE and deciding MBA, and I was like, wow, a lot of things in common. But I guess that's also part of the IE spirit. And I always say when people ask me IE, people are a different kind of breed. So it's probably easy to relate with another alumni for me as well. So I remember the opening ceremony of our MBA session, and the dean at the time said, I think it was times of fortune, don't quote me on it, defined as a student, it's a unique school with unusual students, right? So let's jump into your alumni time, because I'm really keen to see what changed for you during your time at IE when you were an alumni. Can you relate to that quote, or can you give us any insights on what an alumni looks like from IE?
Yeah, sure. I can definitely do that. And I think just kind of reflecting on kind of the last point there around why IE as well is that, there are different business schools in the world, like you have like London Business School, you have this different school that kind of stand for different things. And I think one of the things that was really unique with IE was is the diversity of students, of the way that we teach. I remember in my class, you had an international concert pianist, you had a lawyer working for FIFA, you had a lot of kind of different type of backgrounds, people who wanted to do different type of things. While in some business schools, not naming any names, everybody wants to, work at McKinsey afterwards, or like go into management consulting. And I think this is one of the unique things about IE, is just like the diversity, not just nationalities, but in terms of backgrounds and what people want to do with their experience as well. So I think that was something that definitely brought value. And, going into, as you're saying, during the MBA and alumni is definitely something that is a key point, right? Because it's something that you bring with you throughout your whole life. So I think during the MBA program itself, and now as an alumni, you can really see that it brings you more elements to your experience. And I remember when I was doing the program, things that I was learning in the classroom, I could bring back to work, and I could talk about them, and I could bring a different type of perspective. And I remember when I was in the classroom as well, people were keen to know, what are you doing in your company? How can you share that as well? So it was kind of like a learning that would go both ways, if you will. And that was something that was quite valuable at the time, I would say.
It's really interesting. You're bringing back memory. I remember being there on the introduction round and, thinking like, oh, what do you do for a living? And it's like, oh, I'm a GP. I run a fertility clinic. It's like, oh, okay, that's different. And then you talk to the next one and, what do you do? It's like, I'm in tech. I work in the US. And like, okay, that's different too. And different never stopped. So, even in a small intimate class, we were around 20 people. You didn't have two profiles that look anywhere near being the same. So I can totally relate to that diversity that you mentioned, and diversity of thinking as well. It's not only culture, but also roles, culture, mentality. So I couldn't agree more with you. I'm actually quite glad you brought it up as a point. Right. So you started your MBA. When did you start again? What year?
So I started, what was it, in 2013? Yes, I started in 2013. I was at Google at the time, and I was going to Madrid every 6 weeks at the time, and getting combining work with the MBA program, and it was an intense period for sure, right? People ask, are you able to do an MBA and work at the same time? And it is tough for sure, but it is possible. Like, it teaches you something about prioritization, right? Like, yes. What are you actually able to do under pressure? Like, on a personal note, I just recently became a dad 3 months ago, and now something else that is all encompassing and it's taking a lot of your time, and it's a new chapter now. But similarly, when I was doing the MBA program, it's like you bring this additional thing into your life, and you find a way to make it work. You have to prioritize, like ruthlessly prioritize. But yeah, it was a really, really exciting time, and time that I remember back on quite fondly.
Yeah. It's also like the sense of achievement, probably, like once you get a hang of it, how to balance both things. It's just, at least it was for me. I'm interested to see how it was for you. It gives you that extra rush that you could actually do it and you can do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, one of the things that I realized also talking to, companies or like being in interview processes and these types of things, it like your kind of your profile is seen on differently as well when you're like, oh, you're seen as a very ambitious person being able to do this. So like, a lot of the conversation I would have when I was interviewing, for example, would be around that. Oh, like you must be like an ambitious person, you're able to do all of these things. How do you do it? Right. And I think that's something that, in the corporate sector is very much, valued as a component. And I definitely saw that, people saw that more in me as a result of doing that as well from the external perspective.
Nice, the MBA stamp. I'll come back to that later in a little while. But let's stay at your time in during your MBA. So what do you reckon changed during your MBA as a person, your role, your career, or even your ideas about where to go next?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? A lot of people do an MBA because they want to have a change of some sort, whether it is a change of career, change of location, they want to shift things up. And I think people choose different type of MBAs for different purposes, right? If you do a full-time MBA, you want to move to Madrid, you want to go full in on that, or part of the MBA, and you want to stay where you are, but you want to get the MBA. So there are different kind of permutations and combinations. So for me as well, I was, in a point where I was thinking about what am I, want to do with my next steps, where do I want to go? And you are in this kind of environment, everybody is around you like this, like you're in a class of 20 people and everyone is thinking about, what do they want to do? We came up with a startup around, a digital doctor app, and we're thinking, should we go full-time doing this? We didn't end up doing that, but it's like you're thinking outside of the box, like for that 1.5, 2 years, right? And with these people, and you're getting a lot of new ideas and a lot of new energy, I remember, during that point in time. And it was exciting, like a lot of things you learn from the new things. You're building relationships with, with people who are now, lifelong friends. We have WhatsApp groups we speak on almost daily, and there are things that we try to meet up once a year somewhere in the world. And so like you build lifelong friendships, and it's like just a really intense and exciting time, and just learning a lot of things that I could bring from school back to work and vice versa. And so I would say for me, one of the things that I realized is I want to go more entrepreneurial, but again, my passion is kind of working in technology, and I want to move more into sort of leadership positions, right? Like that was something that I kind of was able to kind of crystallize more during the program. So even though I didn't end up going on like I'm working for a large technology company today, I'm advising different startups. The way that my job involves helping a lot of small and medium-sized businesses and helping them with digital transformation. So it's definitely something that I knew this was kind of a path, and that crystallized, I guess, more clearly during the program at IE.
Right. So it looks like that it's almost like going through therapy and understanding what you want to do. And the irony for me is that you do that while you have no time whatsoever, right? So between work and studying, it leaves very little time. But I can relate to that during my.
But Dominic, on that point, actually, what I always remember this, in companies, and you might relate to this as well. Is often it's like the high performers are the ones that are given more and more work, right, by their managers, because they're seen as they're able to do it, right? So it's kind of like it's not the ones that are doing very little that are getting a lot of tasks. It's actually the ones who are doing a lot in a way.
Yeah.
And I think it's maybe a metaphor of this type of thing as well, right? Like once you're able to do some capacity and you're able to prioritize, you figure out better ways of doing things, right? In that side of things too. It's
like the famous one: if you want to get something done, give it to X. In this case, it's Prashant, right? Give it to Prashant, he'll get it done. He's the high performer. Yeah. So absolutely, good insights there. So we are doing your time during the MBA. We just talked about what changed. Was there any pivotal moment that you thought, when you look back, this is the moment where I knew something changed?
So I think it's a good question, right? Like, when do you change? And I think change, I'm more of a person who's a believer in kind of incremental change than like completely changing overnight,
Yes.
like, so in the sense that, you can change. What is this quote? You don't know what, you overestimate what you can do in a day, but underestimate what you can do in a year, or something like this. Is that how you say it, Dominica?
Yeah, it's actually from Tony Robinson, but it
Yeah.
basically said in one of his talks, and it stuck with me, that you overestimate what you can achieve in 1 year, and you
Right.
underestimate what you're going to achieve in 10 years.
10 year, right. Yeah, and I think so. So I think in that sense, during the program, if you think about it like that, I saw like small shifts throughout, right? And it was kind of just different ideas. Like I wanted to be more involved in kind of the startup community, so like that, advising quite a few different like startups on the side as a result. I wanted to. I realized I'm passionate about sort of teaching and bringing kind of latest knowledge in kind of digital marketing, and really passionate about that as working with clients. So one of the things that, I realized that I wanted to do is I wanted to go more into teaching, right? So how can I bring that, go full circle in a way, and like, okay, I was learning so much knowledge, how can I give that back as well? So I was definitely getting a lot of these, let's say, nuggets during the program, but I didn't necessarily know, okay, how do I bring it all together, so to speak? It was more so different things that kind of like, if you will, like different aha moments or different things. Okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And then it was probably more so afterwards where it's like, okay, then how do I actually execute on this? And things were more put into place, in the period after the MBA, if you will.
Nice, thank you. I like the concept of incremental change and different changes, and how you went through the different steps during the MBA, and getting closer to defining what you wanted to do post MBA, rather than thinking, yeah, it was one moment. So everyone is different, and I really like it.
Yeah.
So
I think just on that note as well, just another thought that came to mind. Sorry for cutting you off, Domenico. Is the aspect that, a lot of people think, okay, what do I want to achieve from this program, and setting their mind to it. And I think it's really about having, somehow like realistic expectations as well, in terms of what do you want to do, right? It's like, what are you bringing from your past plus the MBA to your future, right? It's not necessarily that the MBA is going to totally put you on a completely different course. So I think it's like finding that merge between the two. And sometimes you figure that out during the program as well. Like, okay, how can I utilize the experience? Because people who are doing the MBA program have a lot of experience, right? So how can you utilize the experience that you have in the past, plus this new experience of, having management experience, like 360-degree business, this stamp of approval, bringing those two things together, if you will. And I think that's something that, I was seeing with my classmates as well, figuring that out during the program, like what exactly do they want to do? Like this, like 1 + 1 = 3, right? the pre-experience plus the MBA. Okay, where does that bring you into the future, kind of thing?
Yeah, nicely said. Which we're already talking about it. So your life post MBA, I know Isma introduced you at the beginning and shared a little bit about your role. But what are you doing now, 6 years later after your MBA? What's your role now, and what do you do on a daily basis, if you want?
Sure. So, I'm working at Facebook. I'm working as a head of sales. I'm managing managers, managing a team of around like 30 people, more or less, in the EMEA region. So, so a lot of that involves kind of, leading people, like, so self-leadership is important from that perspective. And then also like the clients that we have on the other side. So, my team manages around, how do we say, like maybe like $700-800 million a year, something like this. But again, we're self-serve advertising platform, so it's I can't say that our team can take credit for all the money that is generated, to be fair. But so that's kind of my, let's say, my day job, and then I sit on some boards of some different startups here and there. Like one example is a startup called Incense, which is a platform for influencers and brands to connect with each other and create marketing. I also have gone full circle in what I was talking about previously. So I had the passion for marketing and teaching. And I remember when I was doing my program, one of the classes that I was doing the best in, or I got close to, was the marketing professor, who's also one of the sort of vice deans at IE now as well. And I was telling him that, this is something that I'm passionate about, and like, let me know if there comes an opportunity. And then they evolved the program where they developed some new modules around digital marketing. And then, just staying in touch, right? It's about this whole network thing, like you say, okay, is it what is the network that IE brings you? But conversely, how are you staying in touch with that network yourself? It's not the network comes to you, but you have to come to the network, so to say. So it's like, sticking to that network. So when the time was right, like when there's an opportunity, and now I've started teaching, I've become an adjunct professor at IE, so sort of gone full circle, teaching in the programs that I used to be a student in. So it's kind of like lifelong learning, lifelong journey, so to speak. Yeah, and that's something that has been great as well, to give back and seeing things from the other side. So now as a professor, I can actually get inspiration from my students, because they are super ambitious, super motivated, want to make a difference. And that also energizes me on the flip side as well. So still able to get a bit of the sort of IE magic. So I think even though, graduated from the program, I think you never graduate from being a part of the IE community if you don't choose to graduate, so to speak. It's kind of something that sticks to you if you want to stick to it. Yeah.
I really liked it. And again, I remember the dean saying it at the beginning of our ceremony, saying like, welcome to a family of 65,000 people. And what he was referring to is everyone that went to IE. But I would also say, like you just said, you never really graduate from IE. I have to say, I graduated from my first uni, from my bachelor degree. I feel like a graduate there, but I still feel like I'm going to IE even 6 months later. So I think you really put it nicely there in saying like, you never really graduate from this program. So
same, yeah, it's the same with me, Domenico. Like where I did my bachelor's degree, I almost don't have any connection with them anymore. So there is definitely something there with the magic of what the school brings, and that's why yourself, Isma as well, myself, we're all have been products of IE, but we're still in different capacities still involved with the school, right? And that shows that it's there's something there.
Could be a poster image here, looking at the different regions we come from and we lived in different programs, just reflecting on it. But let's stay with one part a little bit longer, which is the tangibles, right? So I remember myself, and maybe Isma and Prashant, you might be able, or our participants today might be able to relate to it as well. When I was going through the process of deciding where to go, one of the stupid questions I was asking is about the ROI, right? So what's the ROI of going to IE and picking the IE MBA? And I say it with a smile, one of the stupid questions, because I realized that there are so many more things that I didn't even look at that are return of investment. But let's stick to the tangible one, because I think a lot of people look at that first. 6 years later, how do you value your MBA? What's the value of your MBA today?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, right? I think, to be fair, a lot of people do an MBA because of these rankings which say like, oh, what is your post MBA salary? And like, to be realistic, it's not like suddenly overnight, okay, just because you're an MBA, your employer is gonna double your salary. Like in reality, that's not really how it works, right? And I think in some cases it's the company that sponsors the program, but other cases people are self-sponsoring themselves because they want to do something with their shelf. So obviously, if you can make more money, obviously that's a positive element, because then you can make it worth it for yourself or justify the investment in yourself, so to speak. But obviously that's just a very small part of it. So I mean, if we start with that first, like the tangible element, I have probably gotten something like, I don't know, 3 or 4, I guess, like promotions during the last, let's say, 6 years, right? So like from an ROI perspective, if I can give even IE credit to, like half of that or 30% of that, like it was, still pay itself over, right? So in one way or the other. So I would say like, it can definitely do, but some people end up going in a social entrepreneurship route where money isn't the goal, right? So I wouldn't say like, if you have a goal to optimize for increasing your money, then you can definitely do that. What I would say though is that if you think about 6 years after, not a lot of it necessarily comes just right after the program. Like a lot of the benefits kind of slowly accumulate over the years. I can see, right? Like 6 years later, I can, as the quote from Steve Jobs is around, it's easier to look backwards at what happens rather than forwards. And he was talking about his commencement speech where he talks about how in retrospect it's easy to reflect on all the achievements rather than what's going to happen in the future, because you don't know what the future is going to hold. But I think 6 years later, now I'm in like a senior management position. I'm helping all these startups out. I am also teaching, and these were all type of things that I had in my career goals in some ways, but they didn't happen overnight. Like just because I had the MBA and I graduated with the IE diploma, okay, here can I have those type of things? No, those things happen over time, if you will, and part of that still goes back to the phenomena of like you own your own career, if you will. And that's what I say to the people in my own team at Facebook, or people in my classroom as well, is that your manager isn't the one that needs to help you grow your career. You need to own your own career. Your manager can help you and guide you to get there, coach you to get there, but you have to take responsibility for your own career. And I think it's kind of the same with an MBA. It's like, just because you have an MBA, like all the recruiters are not suddenly going to contact you and say like, oh, like you have an MBA, you want to work for me. Like you still have to be in that driver's seat and take control. But it like in my case, it really has given me additional tools in my kit that helps me actually get to those goals that I want to get. Like, I'm not sure, I don't think I would be able to be in like the senior management position I'm today if I didn't have the MBA, for example. I don't think I would be able to teach at IE, be a professor there if I hadn't done the MBA, for example, or to teach, to advise these startups in the same kind of way with the same kind of knowledge as well. So I definitely think that it has brought a lot to me, and they have accumulated over the years, right? Like I didn't start teaching at IE for maybe like 3 or 4 years after I finished the MBA, right? So it's not like it just happens overnight, but it's like having that long-term vision. Where do you want to get to? And then you're getting there, like you're taking those steps, right? You're kind of eating that what is it, the elephant, right, in small pieces until it's like the whole elephant. Even though nobody eats elephants, but it's more the phenomena as like a big problem is easier if you kind of cut it into small pieces, if you will. And I think it's the same kind of thing, that it really helps you cut those pieces and get through them. But yeah, it takes some more time. But yeah, curious with you, Domenico. You're also a graduate from the MBA program. Like, how have you seen it so far with post MBA with the tangibles in your end?
For me, it was amazing. So at the time, I was in Sydney, and I was thinking of going to a local university or not. So I was deciding between the big ones in Australia, in Sydney, UNSW and Macquarie. And then I started looking at IE. And I would have had more tax benefits with Australia, but I still went for IE. And at the time, I was literally looking at the tangibles and looking at, all right, how will my career evolve? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm on my own. Do I need it? Do I not need it? But so far from the tangible, within 6 months, you already said it, it's a thing that comes post. I'm already halfway there. So between the new additional work I've gained through the IE network is already that came towards me without me even thinking of that would happen. That already is halfway there in terms of ROI. But for me, the big ROI is just the most of it is intangible. So I'm sure that I will recuperate the cost of my MBA within 2 years, the way it's going right now, maybe even quicker. I was hoping I would recuperate in 5 years, so I'm well ahead of it. But what's actually the bigger part is the intangibles, which I never thought would be that big. And maybe we can talk about that for a second. in a while, basically. But that for me is what blows this program away out of the ballpark, if you want. Yeah. Actually, let's do that. You already started talking about that a little bit. But Prashant, sorry, I think like I've cut you off there, so please go.
No. So yeah, so in terms of intangibles, you're saying, right?
Yes. So what about the intangibles? You already talked about your own career.
Yeah.
And you talked a little bit about Steve Jobs, but what are the intangibles that you realize now? Maybe you realized maybe you already thought about it before the MBA. I don't know.
Yeah. Sure. So yeah, the intangibles is everything else, right? Connected to that. And there's many, right? So one that I mentioned before is the network, right? And you mentioned that as well, Domenico, right? It's a network of 60,000 people. And it's, even though I did a virtual program, it was an online program, like, part of this IE family, like as strongly as I think, if anybody argues, oh, like a virtual MBA, it doesn't give you like the network, like I'm a poster child that it can do, right? I'm even kind of back teaching there and everything like that without necessarily having that. So it's kind of the network is really immense, and the type of people that I've been able to meet and connect to, and vice versa. I think now it's the other way, giving back to that network as well. Like it goes both ways, so to speak. Because you feel you've gotten so much from the network, you also want to give back to the network, right? It's it's kind of how it works. So I think the network part is really key, and it sort of can give you a lot of value. The friendships as well. Again, it's another intangible, but the people that you are in class with, that you connect with, and you somehow have this connection element with people just because they have been going to IE. It's kind of like this just like from ISEC, right? And in those days where it was, you've been, just because you're an ISECer, once an ISECer, always an ISECer. And it's kind of like that with IE as well. Like once you've gone to IE, you're always, part of the IE community, if you will. And, no matter, which kind of generation or where you've been, there is kind of very strong community, right? And, like IE organizes these global alumni events every year, and regional alumni events, and participating in those as well, and meeting other folks it's quite refreshing. So, like network, friendships, and then it's all of the kind of experiences and learnings, right, around being able to figure out what you want to do with your life, and help getting there in one way or the other. And I think that's something that's been really crucial for me, and I've been really grateful for everything that it has brought so far. So yeah, what would you say then, Domenico, in terms of 6 months post the program experience? What are the kind of the main kind of intangibles there that you've seen?
I agree with yours. They're really, really good. I like the part about the virtual you mentioned. I have to say, I'm biased here, right? I am an IE alumni. But what I would say is that virtual environment, if anything, allows you to bond more sustainable. What do I mean by that? We're all in careers now which you are pulled from one country and one city to the other. So because we're already used to working online and being online, I'm still connected to most of my alumni, myself, my class, on a daily basis, right? And that's through WhatsApp group, but also phone calls. And so I bonded with some of them after the MBA when I spent a few months in Madrid. And even though we didn't study in the same group together during the year, it was very easy to pick up that conversation face to face because we are still connected online. During COVID, we were moving to different places, and just being able to draw on those friendships and ask, hey, how is the situation in that country and city you're living in? So that friendship network thing you mentioned is huge. For me, there were a few more intangibles just because I was facilitating and coaching at a time. And one of the things I did not see coming, how much value I would get from seeing other people facilitate, right? From seeing the professors, the speakers in all the international residential weeks. Probably, I don't know, I would have to count them, but I would say I would easily seen 50 to 70 other facilitators or professors present. Because I was pretty much local and face-to-face at the time I started my MBA. When COVID happened, I had experience in seeing other people facilitate online. So it really made it easy for me to jump the gun, because I thought if they can do it, I can do it too. And I remember in my first week reflecting on it and saying, like, I would have never thought. I'm sitting here and thinking, I like that. I'm not doing that. I should implement that. Or crap, I really hate that. I do that too. So I need to get rid of that. So those are a lot of the intangibles that I did not see coming at all in my way.
It's a great one. And actually, to touch on that, one thing that came to my mind now, I remember from the program, was one of the values of the program was giving people feedback, right? Giving your group feedback, and actually, like, you are in this very intense, pressurized environment where you're doing all of these things, and then you're working in this groups with different people, and you basically some people you get along with better, you have similar working styles with, but some perhaps you have challenging with, and actually being able to how do you figure out and work, and through that as well, like learning a lot about myself, getting feedback about myself, was definitely valuable in that type of context as well. And I was just reminded about that when you mentioned the fact that you saw other facilitators and how that gave you insights about yourself too.
Yeah. And the last one is also the confidence part. So I think having done the MBA with such an amazing group of people, and getting also the confirmation from them, if you want, you're actually good. I came from an environment where I was very senior in my role, but at times my qualifications didn't stick up to that. So post MBA and doing the MBA, you get the confirmation saying, okay, you actually know what you're doing, because you get it from other people at very senior level, and from the professors and from JournIE. So that's probably something I didn't quite see coming as well. Yeah. Lots of intangibles, as I said. But let's move back to you, because you are our star today. And I'm happy to share my experience. It's it's good to focus on your career as well. So we talked about that 1 year, 10-year paradox, if you want.
Yeah.
And then we talked about your current role at Facebook. So let's move towards those topics. How would you, how did you think you went, if you looked at the 1 year paradox, what you wanted maybe to achieve in 1 year and what you thought you would achieve in 10 years? You are 6 years into the journey. If you have to relate back, how did things go?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? I think one of the things that I was planning, to be completely transparent, when I was finishing my program, I was going to go like full out and join a startup. And I was going to join a startup. I was going to move to Amsterdam. And then I think the day before I was supposed to move, they said they didn't get funding. And then, it's better if you don't move to Amsterdam. They basically said the day before I was going to move there. This was, I think, 5 years ago or something like that. So I think you have plans, and I had some plans, and some of those plans also change over time, right? So I thought, oh, this is really what I had to do. Like I needed to do, like be in a startup and really you go from the ground up. And that's, my purpose and that's what I thought perhaps also during the program and at the end of the program. What I realized over time is, again, what are my strengths and what can I bring to the table, and what do I really enjoy doing? I realized that I'm more of a kind of, executor than somebody who builds something out of nothing, so to speak. And that's where I can really bring value also to startups and to other things. How can they, formalize and make things, make sense of things? And then I realized that perhaps this is the path that I want to do. And I ended up sort of staying in the corporate sector and going down that path and combining both of those things together. So you get wiser over the time. So perhaps I'm a bit wiser now about, what I like to do and my strength than I was, just when I finished the program as well. And I think that's okay, right? It's a continuous learning journey, if you will. And I think that's the mindset that I have. And I think that's part of this sort of IE mindset, or like a healthy mindset in general, is that, you always have things that you can improve. You can always be better. You can always, you always have blind spots. And you're never really an expert at anything, so to speak. Like the world is constantly evolving, as we know. And I think the IE education in a way helps you deal with that ambiguity and uncertainty in the world, because it's like, you know, the situations are going to be new that have never been done before, and you realize new things about yourself. So I think, you know, just solidifying that over time, right? Figuring out what I can do, and my experience over time has enabled me to tackle these type of situations to a better way over the years. So yeah, I realize, you know, 6 years down the line, I can still remember certain things that we were talking about in class, you know, 6 years ago. You know, like I can relate in a certain type of moment here or there. But yeah, it's been a journey, and it's kind of a continuous journey, right? Still on that path, if you will. And you know, I don't know necessarily where that path is going to bring me tomorrow, but at least I have, let's say, the toolkit to be able to handle the situations better than I had 6 years ago, if you will.
Perfect, thank you. And I think you're being too hard on yourself, because you said earlier you're a board member in some startups, so I think you're at least, you know, 75% already there. So, you know, different ways. And I also really like what you said, that you can actually serve companies different, and you can understand a little bit more where your strengths are, and go from there as well. I quite like that, because sometimes those blind spots that you mentioned is one of the blind spots is what we would like to do, what we think is cool, rather than where our strengths are and how that combines as a grid in terms of like, where do I want to work in the future?
Yeah, I think that's a really good, that topic is a really interesting one, right? Because I think often we are engaged like, oh, we want to work for those, again, maybe I'm not a good example, I'm working for a big corporate name, right? In that sense, which I'm an example of. So, but I think you think those things, or you think, oh, like the brand name of the school I want to go to, or like those, but they're like, of course they're important to some degree, but they're also like superficial elements, right? If you look at what is truly going to make you happy in the long run, you know, in your career, with your life, it's like, are you doing something where you have, you know, like autonomy, mastery, purpose, right? Is what some people say, right? You know, are you able to get that? And I think, you know, doing an MBA or something can help you get those tools and figure out what you want to do, like, you know, give you some reflections, figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, and do more of the things that you enjoy and less of the things that you don't enjoy, right? And that's what's really important, because, you know, in the end of the day, your work is what you're going to be spending, you know, a really large portion of your life on. So it's important that it's something that is, you know, valued to yourself and to others, if you will. Like, getting a bit philosophical here, right? But I think it's
good.
It's something that I think with an MBA as well, it's the kind of the tangible versus intangible. Okay, tangible, if you can make, you know, this much money, I'm sure you can do that if that is your goal. But I think the value of the intangibles at that side are quite immense as well.
Perfect. No, I don't mind you going philosophical. It's okay. It's the intangibles we were talking about earlier. But let's go a little bit towards your new role and career services. So one of the big decisions where people evaluate MBA programs are the career service of the respective business school. So you've gone full circle. You are teaching at IE, but you also are in a leadership position now. In your capacity, are you using the career services from IE to advertise for jobs, or even try to recruit people from IE students?
Yeah, so I think great question, and definitely, right? So I think the kind of talent and career services department at IE has really kind of, you know, gone through kind of a 360 overhaul in the last couple of years, and they're really focused on kind of specific industries as well, where they're like, you know, like they have certain folks are just working on tech, or certain folks working on like financial services, or different types of things, where they are keeping in touch with, you know, industry stakeholders. I remember when the talent and career services from IE were in Dublin couple of years back, and met with them, and we're trying to see, okay, what are the type of roles we're hiring for? How do they fit to the profiles of, you know, IE students as well? And they would, you know, post some of the roles that I was having in my team there, and I would be getting many candidates from IE through that channel as well. And I think that's one of the benefits, right, of going to a business school is that the career services department, like helping you, one, figure out what you want to do, but then once you know what you want to do, how do you get there in terms of like, if there's specific companies, specific areas, you know, through the IE network, or through the relationships that IE has with a lot of companies as well, to help you get there. So I would say, like, in general, the caliber of IE students is really good. And that's because of, the type of diversity of mindset, like the ambitious nature of the students, the kind of the profiles that people have is really good. So we've had really good experience hiring, people who have studied at IE in the past. So for sure. And, I've gotten value from the careers department myself in the flip side of that too.
Nice. And you mentioned you hired some people, or you had good experiences. What are some of the values that make a difference from IE students?
Yeah, I think it's like, we touched upon this earlier, but this is like an entrepreneurial mindset, right? I think in Facebook, you say nothing is constant in Facebook other than change is kind of one of the quotes. So it's not necessarily about all the technical skills that you have, but it's really about how do you deal with, you need to have a learning mindset. You need to have the ability to be curious, to, and to be able to grasp information quickly and adapt as things change. Like, you need to have that type of mindset, and everything else you can be taught, right? Like the specific product, everything else, you can teach, as long as you have the right kind of, initial values, if you will. And I think that's something that a lot of, graduates from IE have, right? Both from like the people who are attracted to the school, but also the products of the school as well. Yeah, people who have an international and global mindset, people who have, have interesting backgrounds, like diversity of backgrounds, people who, are interested to kind of change, do things in different type of ways, but still have a very strong fundament of kind of business understanding as well, which I think is important. Like, we are advising a lot of companies on how do they work with their businesses or their, so you need people who understand that and have the strong fundament. So I think that's something that really stands out in IE students, yeah.
Perfect. No, I liked it. Nice final words. I think I'll end my questioning here. I've gone a little bit over what I was expecting and planning to ask questions, and I wanted to give some more time to the audience as well. But as I'm not too late, I'll open it up. Any questions for Prashant? Any comments? Any clarifications? Any curiosities, if you want? Don't be shy.
I can start. Hi, I'm Shreya. So actually, it's a very good thing that you sort of also mentioned, because when I know my friends who have done like MBA, but they are like more full time, but I also cannot go like, changing my whole life like 360 and like leave my job and all of that. And for me also the online MBA sort of makes sense, but then people tell me that, it's about networking, and then if it's sort of online, and then, how would that happen? Because I am from a tech background, and I'm mostly like engineering side of it. So
right.
I have like a very little sort of interaction with the business in general. I am started doing that at my workplace, but still that kind of interaction is still in the beginning of my career. So yeah, I usually had such questions, because then people ask me like, how will that work out in this sort of environment?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think it's thanks for that, Shreya. And I think it's a question that a lot of folks have in general, right? Like, the value of an MBA is the network, and like a big portion is the network, right? Because you want to do something. That's true. But then if you dig deeper into what does it actually mean? Like what type of network are you actually building, right? And I think if COVID has taught us one, when everything has been moved online, is business still moves forward, even though things have moved online. And I think perhaps education is more difficult for people who are early in their career, or just like in an undergraduate program, where like the social aspect of just being on campus is important. But if you just dissect the network part, right? As Dominika mentioned, IE has 60,000 alumni, more or less, and those are people who are not necessarily physically present on campus, anyways. So the key to the network is you figure out where do you want to go with your career, and what are the type of folks that you have. So the people who are in the program with, you're building a network with them, and as I think Dominika also said, that you perhaps, and I would agree with that, build even stronger relationship with people when you're in a virtual environment than perhaps in a physical environment, because you have to try harder to make it happen. Like in my class, you had people who were based in, North America, South America, Middle East, Asia, and Europe, right? So you had a lot of different time zones. You had to deal with a very kind of complex setup like that. So it was tough for sure, but, built a very strong community with the people who I was studying with. So that's the kind of the one network. That's kind of like the first degree network, if you will. And then you kind of have more of the second degree network, which is both like, through, obviously the professors that you have there, which, in my example, I was able to go back and teach because I built the network with some of the professors, for example. But you have maybe the kind of companies that you also see, are connected to the different career fairs or different types of things, which again now have also gone virtual. You have the talent and careers services department, which are helping everybody, regardless whether they're kind of physical or virtual as well. But then in the end, the kind of the biggest one is the alumni network. And that's a global network. So it doesn't really matter whether you're based in Madrid or whether you're based in, Sydney or wherever it is. You have the same access to these people if you reach out to them on LinkedIn or in other kind of ways and saying, like I just studied at IE, I would love to have a chat with you because I'm interested to look at opportunities in your company, for example, right? So I think that doesn't necessarily change the dynamic, I would say. And I think COVID has again accelerated that trend. So I wouldn't necessarily see that as a downside from a networking perspective. But yeah, Dominique, I don't know if you have anything to add on that from your perspective.
You went really, really deep, really well. I would say one of the things that distinguishes the MBAs at IE is that there are so many programs and they're not just another copycat of something else. So they are thoughtfully designed. When it comes to that, the part-time is designed for people with part-time jobs. So it can get stressful, but it's designed from the way in. So if I relate back to my experience in the first couple of days, it was all about human connection. It wasn't about, hey, here's how you learn the system. It was literally about connecting. And then after 3 months, when we went to the second residential period, it was like going back home and visiting your family, because you just spent 25 hours a week, 15 hours a week, as much as you could with those people online. And you read their answers in the forum and you really understand how they think and who they are as a person. So when you see them back 3 months later, it's just like, all right, this is really a strong bond, right? And strong emotions either way. Some people are like, man, I really like going out with you in Madrid, but on the forums, like, man, you're challenging me every time. Give me a break. Right? So you have also those moments. So the networking is also as much as you do with it. So for me, and I'll connect it to Jess' question, I was in Sydney when I did my MBA. I connected with a few alumni in Sydney, and we launched the drink session, which we do once a month, right? We go for drinks in Sydney. We now do that in other cities as well. So there was one of them that we initiated. While we were there having drinks, it's like, we're doing this masterclass, which is great. Can we do more than that? And this is a bit related to what Prashant was saying. You build your own career and it's your network. And whatever you put in, you get double out of it, but you have also sometimes to put in. So now there's also a running club of IE people. So those things didn't exist when I joined the MBA, but existing now. I think, Shreya, you're in Berlin, and I think Berlin is pretty big with IE students, but I don't know if what they're doing there, because it's a bit regional. If they're not doing it, there is a chance to do it. And now I'm the VP of the alumni in ANZ, right? So it's as much as you do with it. So the networking is there. Sometimes people go to networking with the wrong mindset. It's just like about getting the new next job. And I am very much like the Chinese or Asian way of networking, where I go to meet people and open-minded. And if you have that open-minded mindset, it's amazing what can happen. Yeah. And sorry, I got one more example. I've got one of the IE alumni I met there actually took with me on a work assignment, and I hired him as a coach. Right, so it's full circle. It goes either way, but it's just beautiful network of people.
And I think just to add again on the network piece here, like it's kind of 6 years later, like the network continues to build. It's not just the network you're building during the program, right? That's, I think the program, you're so busy anyways, like you have limited time to really build your network too much, right? Other than like very targeted and the people you're in your class with. But it's like over time, it's like, you know, I'm meeting Isma, I'm meeting Dominique, I'm meeting other people from IE over the years. Because I was there and because we have this common connection, right? So it's not necessarily, okay, because I was doing this program, that's the one chance you have, but it continues on. As long as you put into it, you're going to get out of it. And as Dominica mentioned, there are local communities all around the world as well, where you can connect with the alumni. I know I'm based in Ireland, and you have kind of a, alumni community here that meets up, and, you have a similar thing all around the world.
Yeah. And to that credit to what Prashant was saying about the career being very developed and doing a lot of things in the latest the years. There's a woman that came over from BCG, and she's heading up the talent and career services. I had a meeting with her on Friday. We were talking about what Prashant was saying, that we're very busy doing the MBA, especially when you're doing part-time. So how can we build it afterwards as well? And like, they're very receptive to ideas. I think that's probably one of the difference between IE. I've noticed that we don't always have all the answers, but we're very receptive to improve.
Yeah, and I think on that point, actually, like with the people who are doing the full-time MBA program, they do these refresher sessions, like after 1 year or after 2 years, after the program is finished, with students who are kind of like back into their career, to kind of see like, well, what are you doing with the MBA, and give them some additional master classes and some different things. I was participating in one of those last year as well, because I think you don't necessarily have all the answers for the rest of your life just after the MBA program, as we talked about. You might have some ideas, you might switch your job once, but it might not be, okay, this is going to be your dream job, or like it might still evolve. So still having these points where you can go back and you can reflect and see like, okay, am I still on the right path, or do I need to push in, to go in the right path as well? And that I actually invest in folks after they have left the school to ensure that people feel that they're getting, value for the program a few years later.
Yeah, spot on. Thanks, Prashant. It was worthwhile highlighting. And Isma, I think Jess was also asking you, where were you based when you studied? And I think you have an interesting short story there to share. So we haven't heard much from you, so it's a perfect question for thanks, Jess, for Isma, actually.
Well, I was a full-time student, so I was based in Madrid. But I have an interesting story, as Dom said, because I actually started in 2016. And it's a 1-year program at IE, the full-time program. But I had to take a break like after the 8th month of my MBA, because I had some family issues at home. So I came back to Malaysia, where I'm from, and I became a change management consultant for a couple of years. And then I went back to Madrid and finally graduated in 2019. So I'm officially a 2019 graduate, but I did most of my MBA in 2016. So this is not a usual format, but we're understanding enough because I had some difficulties with my family situation. But yeah, in the end, it became like a MBA plus like a training sandwiched in the middle, which worked very well for me.
And by all means, Jess, did that answer your question, or was it another question or another reason why you were asking about location?
Oh, I have so many questions. Hi, Prashant. It's good to see you after a really long time.
Yeah, likewise.
But I do have a question for you. So I would like to get you to think back to when you started your MBA 6 years ago and where you were at career-wise. Because essentially I'm trying to answer 3 questions. I'm trying to answer, is an MBA right for me? Is an IE MBA right for me? And when would an MBA be right for me career-wise? So where were you when you joined the program? Were you an individual contributor? Were you a team leader? What was your work life like? Just to understand what balance you had.
Sure. Sounds good. So yeah, when I joined IE, I was an individual contributor. I was working kind of directly with the clients and directly with sales, and that was kind of interested. But I felt I was kind of bucketed a bit in kind of like just being in sales, like somebody who's working sales account management and that side of things, right? Which is like, okay, I want to do something more, but like I don't exactly know how am I going to get there, if you will. And I was like, okay, I know I want to do an MBA, and in my case, like I didn't have a master's degree. I just had a bachelor's degree. So it's like, okay, I want some element of mastery, and MBA is the right thing for me. So I was like, okay. And I had, I guess at the time, my employer was like, okay, they were partly supportive to giving me, some flexibility during the workday to kind of, if I need to do some forums or do a bit of traveling, as long as I get my work done, then that's fine. So kind of my work situation was in a place where I felt that I had, the ability to put on this additional workload, if you will. And then I sort of went into it with that kind of mindset, and I joined the program, and then I guess things kind of evolved. I got another job while I was doing the MBA, and that's at that point I actually moved to Facebook, and kind of things started to happen. I got more clarity in terms of where I wanted to go from there. So I think the question about timing, I think one of the things I felt in my role at the time is that I was kind of stagnating a bit in my role, right? I didn't necessarily feel that, where am I going to go from there? What is the next type of step? And I didn't necessarily know if I had necessarily the skill set to where do I want to bring things at that point in time. So I was keen on kind of developing that toolbox and skill sets. And I thought, okay, MBAs could be a way to kind of both give me inspiration about different things that I could do and different things that I had to contribute with. But then kind of the path evolved after that, like while I was doing the program. So I don't know, like in your case, do you feel that do you feel that, like in terms of timing, with that question, like is it something that you have been wondering about for a while, or is it something that you just came up with?
It was your point that your employer at the time was able to grant you workplace flexibility, which is where I'm at for the first time in many, many years, is I have an employer who gives me flexibility. So that has just got me thinking that maybe the timing is lining up a little bit better than it would have been 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Yes, I think that's the thing. Like perhaps there isn't necessarily a perfect timing for anything. It's kind of like, when does it work in your life, right? Like Isma shared her story. Like there were people in my program as well, like some things happened and then they paused for a bit and they came back. So like things happen. So it's like the right time is the time that it fits for you, and it makes sense. Like you justify that it's like, this makes sense for your career, what you need. You identify maybe like these other gaps there. This is where you want to take your career. And perhaps if you identify that an MBA can give you certain things that you need in order to get there, then perhaps that would make sense, right?
Also, adding to that, Jess, if a question is about whether an MBA is right for you now, just keep in mind that there's also there isn't just one MBA program, because the one that I did is the full-time program, and you need a minimum of 3 years of experience. Most people have 5 years of experience. And at the same level, you have the mostly virtual version, that is the one that Prashant did, the Global Online MBA. And then you have something more junior, which is the Master's Management program for people who have 0 to 2 years of experience. Now, on the opposite end, you have the executive MBAs for more senior profiles. And one of the executive programs is the Global Executive MBA, which is what Dom did. So there's a portfolio of MBAs, and it's for people with different profiles. But yeah, we can talk more about that one-on-one, because obviously it's not just about what we offer. It's always a match with what you're looking for.
Yeah. I think
that's thanks as well.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that. And what I was going to add is it goes direction what I was mentioning when Shreya asked the question, because there are such a variety of programs fit for different life stages. For me, I firstly got in touch with IE 4 years before I actually signed up. So at the time I was looking at Prashant's program, and then 4 years later, with my career evolving, when I was talking to the people at IE, they told me, actually, no, you should look into the executive MBA or GX MBA, the global executive MBA, which fitted me better when I was in my career. But you have that. And the other thing I can say, if you're looking for a part-time program, this will, for me, I don't know what the programs look like today in Australia. But at the time I was looking for, that for me was the biggest difference, that they were designed with people working full-time in mind. So I looked at some of the other universities, and their part-time program had sessions on Tuesday at 10 a.m. and Thursday at 10 a.m. I'm traveling the whole time. For me, taking 2 hours out of my day means letting go of a whole day of work with a client. So that didn't quite work for me. Now with the online environment, it would be easier, but at the time that didn't work. And with the way the forums are designed, and it's tough if you're in Sydney, but it was still easier to manage than the alternative of having to let go of work. And Rupa, you're nodding. Are you an alumni or a current student? You're based in Sydney, isn't it, as well?
I am based in Sydney, and I'm laughing because I'm smack in the middle of my executive MBA, and it's actually a miracle that I'm on this call because I don't even know which day it is of the week. And yeah, it is tricky with Sydney times, but like you make it work, right? Like I haven't finished yet. I have 6 more months and I graduate in December. But I guess the tough time comes in when we have, when we're 10 hours ahead of Madrid instead of 8 hours and daylight savings. And I joke with everyone because I keep on telling them I live a double time zone life where, some days I sleep at 4 a.m., some days I wake up at 4 a.m., just depending how it is. And I have very little flexibility, unfortunately, in my job because I'm in management consulting. I've worked at Deloitte my entire life. And I'll actually get to my question. But Jess, if you ever need to chat, I'm in Sydney. So when we are allowed out of our home again, I'm happy to meet you for a coffee. But yeah, I'm smack in the middle. And what is, I've learned a lot, and I've also, there's a give and a take, right? Sometimes you just have to put your foot down and say no, and know what your priorities are, which I've heard Prashant and Dominico say over again. It's kind of prioritizing. Some days your work takes precedence, some days, IE takes precedence because forums are not going to stay open for you longer. Your assignment is due tomorrow and you have to present and you have to be part of a team, and you owe not just yourself some sort of a responsibility. You're responsible towards a group and other people who count on you as well, right? So it's a journey. And I haven't finished my journey yet, but I guess my question was, I'm kind of in the middle of my executive MBA, and there's so many opportunities and there's so many, I really want to change the trajectory of my career because I feel I'm kind of stuck in management consulting at the moment. And even though I've grown really quickly and I've got diverse amount of experience, despite being a qualified chartered accountant, I'm not an accountant per se. So I hate introducing myself as that because I feel like people automatically think I'm a debit and credit person, which I'm not. And I never aspire to be that. But I feel like I'm not taking enough of the opportunities that are being afforded to me at IE University, especially with like the career counseling, and like how do I leverage that in my position right now to make sure that when I graduate in December, I'm in a position where I can make a decision. I'm kind of lost because I have so much that's afforded to me, but I can't take advantage of it. And just in terms of the networking, yes, we get to network, but we also kind of put into groups at the moment where APAC and Europe are together, and then the USA and Canada are together. And because I can't travel and the rest of the world is up, they all get to meet and I don't get to meet them. So it's really hard, right? Because everyone's busy, everyone's just trying to achieve it. I feel like I'm losing out, yet you're putting in all this effort. And I don't think I'm going to lose out forever. I think when I get more time to just think, I'll be able to leverage some of these. As you've said, it's an ongoing process. But how do you just like savor the moment and just make the most of it? Because I feel like I'm just doing the moment. And is that the right way? It's supposed to feel like that?
I can share my perspective, and then others can also share theirs. I would say that, like, I can empathize with you, and I remember as well, once the program is finished, you're just like, oh, like I should have, savored it more. I should have done more with it, because it's really intense, but once it's gone kind of thing, right? In one sense. But I think my advice would just be like, don't be too hard on yourself. Like, everybody's just trying with kind of the resources that you have to your disposal at this point in time. And like, you have the time, you have all of these things. And it's not like, okay, if you don't utilize it right now, it's going to go away forever. And I think if there's one message from this talk today, then it's really about, it's kind of like a lifelong network, and it's kind of it's a continuous path. It's not just during the program, but it continues all the way after. So I wouldn't say like, obviously try to figure out what you can have time for right now, but it's not like, how do you optimize it? Or it's not like a checklist of this is all the things you need to do in order to be successful, on the kind of the intangible side during the program as well, right? Successful is like being able to complete the program and still having a balance in your life, like being happy and not burning yourself out. I don't think anybody is gained by doing that, right? So I would say that. But what I would say is, when you're doing the program still, one of the beauties is you are kind of outside of your normal bubble, if you will. So in your case, maybe it's like the management consultant bubble, and like you want to go maybe into other types of bubbles, and like once you're over, maybe you're a bit more in that bubble again. So I would encourage you as much as possible, if you have an idea of like where do you potentially want to take your career afterwards, utilize your management, your consulting experience, and where do you want to take it, to already towards the end of the program, reach out to folks who are working in those type of things, who are alumni or others, and having some conversations as much as possible, because then, you're still in that kind of, this kind of very kind of entrepreneurial mindset while you're doing the MBA. So utilize that as much as possible, but just have like realistic expectations for yourself, and don't, push yourself too hard. That would be my advice.
Also, Rupal, I'd like to add that, I was a full-time student. So even though I did not have like the same kind of challenge in terms of, balancing work and the MBA as you, but I had more coursework. And it was more of like, since I was in Madrid, I wanted to go to all the events. I wanted to attend all the parties, all the networking sessions, and you just had to choose, right? Because you really can't do everything unless you choose not to sleep, right? And even then, there might be something that you're missing, because there could be 3 or 4 events in a day, So I did feel the same as you. I was overwhelmed, and I'm like, you know what? I'm only in this for a year. I'm not making the most out of it. I'm not good enough. I should be changing something. So what I realized was that it's normal to feel that way. I wasn't the only one. And actually, I was doing a lot, but I just did not realize, because I was aiming for a lot more. And what's interesting was that the impact of the MBA, I didn't actually feel it until afterwards. I mean, we talked earlier about, how the immediate impact might not be felt when you graduate, but maybe it's 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, such as Prashant, right? But and it's the same for me, because while doing the MBA, I actually felt that I wasn't learning anything. I'm like, because it's all just the next assignment, the next presentation. Oh, did I finish this essay? I have to do it right now because tomorrow there's another project. It's always what's next, what's next, what's next. You don't really realize how much you are actually developing. So when you finish, and like I said, I'm not the only one. You realize, hey, I actually learned a lot, because you realize that you have developed yourself throughout the year or a year and a half that you've been in the program. And if you compare yourself to before you joined the MBA, and it's not just the knowledge, but it's also your thought process, how you solve problems, how you handle difficult things, or difficult people. You realize, hey, why am I different? Oh, okay, it's because of the MBA, but I didn't realize it then. So yeah, in 6 months you probably feel that way.
I hope so.
You mind me chipping in as well, Rupal? I don't want to overwhelm you.
Sorry?
Do you mind if I chip in as well? I don't want to overwhelm you with so many answers.
Oh no, any advice is more than welcome.
Okay. I can so relate to you, being in management myself, being based in Sydney, going through the part-time program as well. So for me, when you were talking, I was like, oh crap, I know where she is. But the good news I can give you right now is if you've made it through the first 6 months, you're going to graduate, right? So hardly people leave midway through. If they leave, they normally defer and pick it up again for some family reason, something. But if you go through the first 6 months, you're going to graduate. You're going to be fine, especially with the mindset you have. Try not to be overwhelmed. And I think Prashant said it really well, that this MBA doesn't finish and you won't stop from one day to the other to get access to what it brings with it. You can pick it up. I had a very difficult time doing my MBA because I was going through COVID and restructuring my business, my consulting business. And then going to the part-time, and we couldn't travel as well. So we had to postpone that. And I missed out on last residential because I was still in Sydney and I couldn't go there. But I picked it up afterwards and it was no issue whatsoever. I picked it up with the professors, I picked it up with IE, I picked it up with the students and classmates. So it doesn't stop. It only stops if you want it to stop. All right. So try to enjoy what you can, and you're going to miss. There's so much on offer. I don't know how many times I get emails about presentations that I cannot attend. And that's just part of the game. I always used to be frustrated because I thought I'm only missing out on them because I'm in a different time zone. And the people that are in the right time zone, they're working. They couldn't attend either. So it's like, did anyone go to the session? It sounded really interesting. It happened at night. I couldn't go. I was like, no, I was working. It looked interesting for me as well. And no, I was in a board meeting. And no, I had an assessment to become a minister and all different things, but no one can. So enjoy what you can. And if it is something that you really think like, damn, I would love to do this, put it down on your journal. If you have a journal, I do. It really helps me. And I went back to that list after the MBA and said, okay, what are the things that I absolutely wanted to do and I didn't get the chance to do? And by all means, reach out to me privately if you want. I'm very happy.
I will. I mean, I'm guilty. I'm on that group of meeting in Sydney and I haven't attended once because I'm like, I have to attend forums or I have an assignment due. But like we have group networking week where the entire group is coming together in 3 weeks' time in Dubai. And I think I'm one of the only ones who can't attend. And it's heartbreaking because I can't attend because I want to. I can't attend because I can't, because Australia won't let me. How do you go back to that? Because when am I ever going to see my cohort again? And another thing is, I know we all meet in December, but I don't know if, and frankly speaking, let's all be honest with each other, I don't think they're going to let me go then. How do you come to terms with that? And like, it's one of the biggest reasons I chose IE. I didn't want to succumb myself to a country. I wanted to think big. I want to think global. I want my network to be expansive. How do you go back to that?
Look, I can probably relate on that because it just happened to me. And no one gives you the time back under residential. That's just, unfortunately, is what it is with Australia's borders. So I had to leave for an assignment. I have clients all over the world, and I've been in Europe now for 5 months, and I'm doing the best of it. And I don't know when I'll be able to go back to Sydney, right? So I'm on the other side. I jumped, and then it was too early, and the third wave came in, and all sorts of mess. But when I look back at my residential that I missed, no one will give you that back. But that's a fact. If you bury yourself with the idea that, oh my God, I'm not going to go there, it's not going to change. And unfortunately, the border rules are what they are, and we can't get through that, right? I mean, you could say, okay, that the residential is more important than the next year in Sydney or in Australia. By all means, go for it, right? But is it worth that 5 days, 10 days of networking in Dubai? What I can guarantee you is that people know that, and they will be able to get back to it. So I went to Crete and spent 2 months in Crete. One of my classmates was there, and I picked Crete because of that. And Hania, it was safe, COVID safe and everything. And I had a classmate there. Why go somewhere else in Greece, right? Why go somewhere else in Europe? I didn't get the chance to network too much with him because he was in different groups. So I spent some time there and we met, and my relationship is like amazing with him. We now text every day, right? So I got it back afterwards. The same with Gary, a guy that I was very fond of, but we never worked together. He's in Madrid. spent 2 months in Madrid. We went out every other day. We went out week long. I also have another classmates that I actually met, and I've been in the same group with him, David. I'm not as much connected with him, even though he was in Madrid too. Right. So it will happen. And if you're really investing time, you will be able to do that.
Thank you.
Hope that helps. But by all means, reach out, please. Feel free to reach out.
I will.
Yeah.
Also, just very quickly, Rupal. So Dom and I were introduced by Giorgio. I believe you know Giorgio very well. And that was I don't know, a couple of years ago, Dom, and we've worked on quite a few projects since then, and we've actually never met in person.
True. Didn't even think of that.
So, you know, speaking of networking, like, of course, you know, there's value in meeting face to face, but like what Prashant said before, there's a lot of value to be found in digital connection. You know, so it's just a matter of, you know, finding that match, and you know, the sky is the limit basically. So I know it's difficult. I know it's not what you signed up for, but we've got to make the most of it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I just want to text my colleagues that I'm running late. I know we are around 26 minutes over now. I have a few more minutes. I don't know about Prashant with his busy life as well.
Yeah, I have another three minutes now as well. So
any last burning question for Prashant?
Quick one. Prashant, how many people were in your cohort?
In sort of in my class, yeah, I would say maybe like 25, more or less. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Small group.
Yeah. And usually how they were doing it as well, as you would have, you know, some individual assignments and some sort of you do in groups, and those groups would also kind of rotate during the course. So you might be with certain people in the beginning, other people in the middle, and those kinds of things. So you typically would be able to work with quite a decent amount of people during the course of the program.
And what happens when you're in Madrid, like for those residential weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak of when I did it. So yeah, like you would have some face-to-face lectures to see some of the professors like face-to-face, which is nice. Yeah. The other benefit is, you know, you would see all of your classmates face-to-face as well, which was always really great. And it's a combination of, let's say, social and obviously academic, right? So you would have those kind of lectures, you would have some social events, and then you would have things that you would just organize organically with your classmates. You would go out to dinner, you would do kind of other things to kind of experience the city, and it was a really exciting time. I remember I was always looking forward to those times, and I would be going to Madrid and spending time with my classmates. Like really, really special time.
But we always went back home early. We didn't drink. We didn't have. We are packed. But usually what Prashant was also referring to as small classes and small groups, and you get to know. So IE is probably a question for Isma, but my understanding is they're never big classes, like
No.
really big.
No, we have a strict cap on the size of classes. Yeah. So, okay, I think we need to let the busy people back into their busy lives. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, Dom. So we hope to see you in the next one.
Perfect.
Please feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions about IE, just connect with me. I believe all of you are connected with me by email. So thanks a lot. Take
Perfect.
care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Prashant. It was a pleasure interviewing you.
Likewise, thanks for interviewing me. It's a pleasure.